this time for real? So, this evening is going to be a very special one. In a matter of about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, we're going to go and party very enjoyably, intensively with Common. It's going to be tons of fun. Who's excited? Yeah! Oh my. Southwestern has no idea what's in store here. And the next 30 minutes is going to be one of the most powerful moments in this conference and will change so many lives in this room. Young man who's about to present is someone who is walking the path of a true warrior, a true champion for peace. He's someone who has the courage and the passion and knows that his story is one that needs to be heard by every single person in America, every single person in the world right now. About 8 months ago, I was on Do Peace, which is our social networking site for the Department of Peace campaign, the Peace Alliance, the Student Peace Alliance. And I got this message from this young woman who said, basically, I have a fiance whose story you need to hear. And over the course of the last 6 to 8 months, we've been in dialogue, chatting frequently on the phone, working things out. And I had the opportunity to visit with them in Philadelphia and was absolutely blown away by the story that he told and the courage that he has. This morning, when Zak Ebrahim and Sharon walked to the airplane in Philadelphia, the newspapers, all clustered all across the airport, said, "My father, the terrorist," with Zak Ebrahim's picture on the front. I'll let him tell his own story in his own words, as he only uniquely can tell it. This is a young man who has the capacity to change how our generation understands extremism, how our generation understands violence, and the lessons that we can learn, that we must learn right now in our history. I'm proud to introduce Zak Ebrahim.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As Aaron said, my name is Zak Ebrahim, and I'm here today to share my life story with you in hopes of illustrating that no matter what path you're put on, you can choose to promote peace. On November 5th, 1990, when I was 7 years old, my father assassinated a man. That man was Rabbi Meir Kahane, leader of the Jewish Defense League. The JDL, as it was called, was described by the federal government as the largest terrorist organization operating inside the United States at the time. While attempting to flee the scene, my father was shot by a federal postal officer. Both he and Meir Kahane were rushed to the hospital with similar gunshot wounds. Kahane died at Bellevue Hospital that night. My father lived. He was initially acquitted of the murder, but while serving time on assault and weapons charges, he began planning attacks on a dozen New York City landmarks, including synagogues, tunnels, and the United Nations headquarters. Thankfully, those plans were foiled by an FBI informant. Sadly, the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center was not. My father, Al-Sayed Nasser, would eventually be convicted for his involvement in the plan. I spent years of my young life visiting him in prison, Rikers Island, the federal prison in Manhattan, and even entire family weekends at Attica State Penitentiary. This went on for years. Finally, my mother remarried, and we decided as a family to move on and not have any further contact with him. We also changed our names so as to hide our identity from the community in which we lived. It's certainly unusual when an American citizen admits that he is the son of the first member has done and fear for how I would be judged for his actions have caused me to hide my true identity from most of those who know me. I realized at a young age I had to be careful who I told my life story to. People's reactions have ranged from nervous laughter and shock to outright anger and threats against my life. I even once sustained a defensive wound as I grabbed a knife from the hand of someone I thought was a friend, as he lunged at me exclaiming, "I'd be doing this country a service if I killed you." Before today, only my closest friends knew my story. It's been a dream of mine to finally out myself and rid myself of the shame and fear I've felt for so long. As I get older, I realize the need to bring awareness to the issues closest to my heart. I won't hide the fact that this is an emotionally intense moment for me, but regardless, I'm here today to share my experiences in hopes of giving some insight into how I was put on a violent path as a child. Before I begin, I feel the need to mention that my story is in no way a description of the vast majority of Muslim family life. In fact, most Muslims want the same thing as anyone: a job with a decent wage, a safe environment for their children, and a community that doesn't chastise them for their beliefs. However, in many religions, you will find a small number of people who hold so fervently to their beliefs that they must use any means necessary to make others live as they do. Being raised in the home of a Muslim zealot, I've been exposed to many of the things Americans fear about Islam, yet I stand here promoting peace. This would seem an impossibility for those who wish to hang to their own prejudices. I hope by speaking about some of my experiences, I can show people life without violence is possible for those who wish to create it. That being said, I would like to illustrate the path I was introduced to as a child by my father, who now resides at the Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. This was a special Friday for me. I was a normal 6-year-old staring at the clock, waiting for the bell to ring so I could escape school. But that day, my father was waiting in the hallway early. He said, "Assalamu alaikum," which means peace be upon you. And I replied, "Wa alaikum salam," and peace be upon you, the proper way for two Muslims to greet one another. He tells me that we're going to the mosque for Friday prayer, where the blind Sheikh Zak Ebrahim was to preach. At midday every Friday, hundreds of millions of Muslims file into mosques to listen to sermons given by sheikhs. The Quran, the sacred text of Islam, says that praying with a group brings you more blessings than praying alone, making Friday prayer the most special prayer of the week. Most clerics preach harmony between Muslims and non-Muslims, believing that there is a place in this world for all of its inhabitants to live peacefully. However, a small minority call for the destruction of Western democracy. Sheikh Abdurrahman most often fell into that latter group. He sat at the front of the worshippers with a microphone attached to his collar. He began his khutbah, or oration, and I sat there trying my best to mimic my father as he listened intently to his words. That day, the Sheikh argued that Western culture was corrupting Muslims all over the world, that the consequences of American democracy were materialism, sexual perversion, and idolatry, meant to distract believers from the true Word of God.